Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. We have a gentleman today that I think as far as our minds are aligned to the message that you have been hearing me talk about here at Threads of Enlightenment, is that we are creators and it is up to us to create our world and not to just let it happen to us. Because I don't think you'll ever find it if you just wait for it to happen. We are creators and we must create. And so I want to welcome our guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself. And then, as usual, we are going to get the story as to what steps he took to get where he is. Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you, Ken.
You're
My name
welcome,
is
sir.
Thanks. My name is Taylor Roark, and I'll just say really quickly, I don't know what led me to where I am now, but here I am. I've got all 10 fingers, all 10 toes, and I'm definitely creating my life, making it up as I go.
How's it
I'm
going?
100% on board with Ken that we create it all. And give you this, just to say, I was probably going to be half an hour late, and all sorts of things happening, blowing up in my life, and preventing me from being here. And yet, as I was preparing to come, I was very focused and imagined myself sitting in front of my computer on headphones in front of Ken for Threads of Enlightenment, and here we are.
Here we are. Yes.
Yeah.
And and on my side, we lost internet for a while, and I panicked. And I was sending emails and all that type stuff to because my program created another link. So these are the challenges that we have. But as creators, we take and we honor those challenges and we move beyond. Go ahead, Tyler. Go ahead and with your.
Yeah. I'll just say as well, because it's very central too. I mean, creating and this concept of creating, people think we just manifest out of thin air, but creating is not getting everything right and being perfect from the beginning. Creator and the mastery of the creative orientation is the ability to refocus, because we're all human and we all fall off whatever path we're on. And our real mastery of the human journey is our ability to refocus on what it is that we choose to create for our lives. And also just, this is very central to the work I do. There's no condition that precludes you from having what you want in life, unless you assume that it's there. And so quickly, as I said, an hour ago, I assumed that I was going to be late and miss this on one hand. And I said, well, I'm choosing to refocus and choosing to be here for this opportunity today. And lo and behold, that's what I created. Cool. I'll just give I don't know how much you want. I grew up as a pretty mild-mannered suburban kid in, different places up and down the East Coast of the U.S., principally Richmond, Virginia, and then started adventures. I think actually my adventures started really when I was born. I was born in California on an army base, and within 3 weeks of being alive, my mother and I were driving across country and spent my first Christmas in St. Louis at the about six weeks old. And so this idea of adventure and living life as an adventure has been quite central to my life. Even my suburban life, I can see there was a lot of adventure in that. And I've traveled the world. I've lived in the U.S., Japan, France, and I'm based in London, England right now. Although I'm actually do quite a lot of traveling. And I don't think that really fit in to my suburban life. And I knew I wanted to get out and do other things. So, I really stumbled around in my teens and 20s and tried different things. I worked as a blacksmith. I worked as a school bus driver. And I went, after a few years out of university, I went to law school. And I happily get into that, why. But it was a framework for me in terms of a way to learn and a way to apply structural learning. I worked very hard, but I, in a way, kind of fell into working for one of the top Wall Street law firms, and worked in New York, Tokyo, and here in London for 5 years at very, very high level. And then decided that I didn't want to be a lawyer anymore, and I needed a new adventure. I worked for about 10 to 12 years in high-level renewable energy. I was developing offshore wind farms when really nobody even understood what they were, let alone us in some ways. And we were really making it up. I mean, there was no blueprint. So, and these are in the UK at the time. I mean, we were working on like a two to $3 billion infrastructure project that is 40 miles or 30 miles off out to sea.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I I was kind of shuffling paper from one side of the desk to the other. It was really cool. The paper, what was on the paper, and things we were doing were really cool. But at some point, I realized I was just shuffling paper, and I didn't really want to be involved in the corporate world anymore. And talk about what you create and sort of creating from an unconscious perspective. I wanted to get out, but I didn't necessarily have the full confidence in myself about what I was going to do. And lo and behold, I was made redundant from my job, which is amazing because the industry that I'm in is growing massively, and yet our small department in a very big company was made redundant, and it gave me the impetus to go out on my own, and to start my own coaching business. So I had been doing my own personal development training, well, at least in this work now, which is creative orientation, creative consciousness, intuition, for about 5 or 6 years now. And I could, go back to probably decades of work, or, even the books like, whatever I was reading when I was a teenager, as the start of personal development, and maybe even before that. But yeah, I specifically started as an intuitive coach about 4 or 5 years ago, and that's what I've been doing ever since. So I work one-on-one with people primarily, although I do also run workshops, retreats, group programs for organizations, individuals. I mean, everything that's happened with COVID over the last year and a half obviously changed a lot of in-person things. I do some online programs. Some of them are more advanced, so people need to have a basic foundation that I don't necessarily uh, lead people in, or I don't. It's not my program. My mentor with COVID also has put a lot of his stuff online for free, and it's a great structure. So I kind of put people into that, and then they can come to me afterwards. And I mean, it's a broad ranging area. As I said, I work individually with people and with groups. And I'd say probably, I mean, although I do work very well with individuals, I'm probably more interested now in developing the work I do with organizations and starting to combine my corporate background with the foundation I have in intuitive coaching at a high level now. And I've got
So,
other sort of small projects like podcast and acting and writing and all sorts of other funky things. But that's my bread and butter is intuitive coaching.
well, the podcast and all the other things are part of you. So, is part of the adventure as it continues. As I'm listening to your story, I heard that you had a incident in work where your job was no longer available to you, and so from that, you took that time and said and made a decision that I wanted to go there. How at that time did what propelled you? How long of a distance of a time between when you were let go to when you start, and what caused you to go that route? What gave you the confidence to go that route?
Well, nothing gave me the confidence. I'm quite clear. I'm quite clear on that. Um, I do think that I've been slightly naive, a little bullheaded, a little reckless, or seemingly so. Although, as I said, I do have all 10 fingers and all 10 toes. Just like I was talking to somebody else on a podcast over the weekend, and I was sharing how when I graduated, well, even in my teens and 20s, I was very interested in artistic expression. So I was playing music. As I said, I worked as a blacksmith. So I was working as a metal sculptor, actually an apprentice metal sculptor and then blacksmith. and a filmmaker. I studied film at university, and I was very interested in these things, but I did not have the confidence at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I imagined at the time that I needed to be some, prodigy expert, that it wouldn't come through the uh, through sort of on the job training as such, that
Mm-hmm.
because I was working when I was apprenticing as a blacksmith and a metal sculptor. The people I was working with were very accomplished, but of course they'd been working for 10 years, not 2 years like me or more. And so I didn't quite have the perspective to see that I could grow into that. So I shied away from those things, from that artistic expression, and went to law school, which was
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though some people might think it's very challenging, for me, it was kind of a safe haven, because I knew I did fairly well in organized academic structures.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so fast forward, whatever that is, 20 years or something. And when I started my personal, like particularly this creative orientation, when I started my personal development journey, I really latched onto it. I mean, I've dabbled in, I don't know how many different, modalities and subjects, and I appreciate all of that. But this work I do in creative orientation, for a number of reasons, really stuck. It really felt the most expansive, the most uh, allowing. Yeah, I mean, just was really what I'd been looking for. So I was using that in my personal life for, I mean, I was getting over, alcohol and probably some drug abuse,
Oh,
and just,
okay.
not
Mm-hmm.
being very happy, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I had a good corporate life, but I wasn't happy in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and uh, and so I was interested in becoming a coach, or using intuition to facilitate other people's creative journeys, personally, professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, like, be careful what you wish for, because
Yeah.
you will it's quite likely that if you're focused on something, even if you're not aware of how focused you are on it, unconsciously you will create the conditions for
Oh,
that.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, then there's the opportunity to decide, well, am I willing to step through this
Mm-hmm.
threshold, or do I imagine, which I did at the time? I mean, I wanted to make a leap into something else, and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, um, I was made redundant. I, was had 2 weeks. I mean, I kind of knew it was coming, but I didn't know the specific
Yeah.
date. And all of a sudden, it was like,
Yeah.
here's a pink slip.
Mm-hmm.
Your job ends in 2 weeks. There was some payout for a couple of months worth of salary, which gave me a buffer. But basically, it was like, well, here you go.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
of course, there was a part of me that thought, holy moly, this is like, I'm at the cliff edge now, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to get over to the other side. And I don't know how to do that. I
Right.
assume
Mm-hmm.
on one level that I'm going to take a step off and, like Wile E. Coyote, like go crashing down 5,000
Mm-hmm.
meters and end up in traction in the hospital, or
Yeah.
worse. And I'm on some unconscious or psychological level. I'm looking for, where's the easy route down, where's the
Yeah.
elevator, where's the bridge across to the other side, and it wasn't there.
You're never there. Mm-hmm.
So, and I think maybe because I mean, I was whatever, mid to late 40s at the time. I just thought, well, screw it. I mean, what's the worst that happens? I
What's
end
the
up
worst?
bankrupt and
Uh-huh.
bankrupt and homeless and dead. Okay, cool. Well, that's the worst. Okay. And so, I've gone through a fair amount. Of course, I didn't want those things, but it's like, okay, that
Yeah.
can happen. That can happen, but that's not what
Mm-hmm.
I want. That's not what I choose. And
Mm-hmm.
because of the training I'd had in, you were talking about creating, and consciousness, and being aware
Yeah.
of our potential, our creative
Yes.
potential. I just said, okay, cool. This is what I want. This is what I'm choosing.
Yeah.
So I did. Within, certainly within a month, and probably within 2 or 3 weeks of finishing my job, I had filled out an application to form a limited
Mm-hmm.
company, and
Yeah.
filed that with the local tax authorities and
Yeah.
company's house, and all these things. And then
Uh-huh.
it was like, okay, well, I'm open for business. I don't know what that means, but hey, here I am. Like, come and see me, world.
I
Yeah,
love
I mean,
that.
and I would say, like I thought I was clever and adaptable. Like I
Hmm.
lived in at that point 4 different countries. I've traveled to I
Yeah.
don't know 50 or something like that, and I went from being a blacksmith to a corporate lawyer to working in renewable energy to consultancy and all these things. And I said, I'm clever, I'm
Hmm.
adaptable.
Yeah.
I'll figure this out. I think the hardest transition I've made
Yeah.
is the transition because everything I'd done before was very heady, very
Hmm.
intellectual.
Yes.
And the transition to go from operating from my head and doing it well enough. I'm not the smartest bulb in there, or whatever brightest bulb in the box, but I'm
Hmm.
not an idiot either. And
Yeah.
but the transition from a head based life and career, really. I mean, I spent 17 years in corporate and another whatever. Besides that, but to go to a heart based um, business
Hmm.
really, really was challenging. I couldn't just think my way through it. I couldn't just be clever and, write a good PowerPoint, right? I really
Hmm.
had
Yeah. Yeah.
to be with your clients, like one of the things, like one of my values is compassion. And
Hmm.
when you break down, I mean, people say, oh, I'm compassionate, and, that's cool. But what does it really, really mean? And
Yeah.
compassion, if you break it down, the Latin, I mean, passion is actually pain. We
Hmm.
think passion means like, oh, I'm so happy and excited about things, but
Yeah.
passion comes from the passion of Christ, and there's a pain. When we're in a
Hmm.
passionate love affair, it could fall apart, and there's this ache in our heart
Yeah.
that we could
Hmm.
lose it at any moment. So
Yeah.
so and that calm, is to be is with, right. So to
Yeah.
be compassionate means to be with suffering.
Hmm.
I'm not there to solve anybody's problems, to tell everybody it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, right? But I hold space for somebody, and I do that very well, probably from my legal background.
Hmm.
I don't take things personally. I don't get involved in people's stories. I hold
Yeah.
people to account to what the potential of their true vision is,
Hmm.
and to how to get that right.
Yeah. I have a saying that I use. I call it compassionate detachment. And I had to
Mm,
learn that principle because I find myself getting involved in it. And one of my friends, I learned this lesson through one of my dear friends, where she was dating someone, and obviously this guy was absolutely the wrong type because he was hooked on drugs. He was pulling her that way, and there was some issues, violence, and stuff like that. And she came to me I invited her to stay to create a safe space for her. And my emotions were so involved in this thing, trying to rescue her, that the term one morning I got up and that thing came to me, compassionate
mm,
detachment. And I remember looking at
mm,
her and had to figure out what that meant. But because of
mm,
my love for her, and I realized that, oh, I could still love her, but still be detached from this situation, because if I don't learn this right here, this is going to be really painful. And I hear you talking about
mm,
that of to a degree. And it's not that you are not empathizing with that person. It's not that you are not feeling that situation. You are, but you're now in a place, I think, where you can respond even better because you're able to make I would say that a mental judgment on that, and not an emotional, just based on emotion, where you can get
mm.
lost in that emotional decision. And so a lot of people get lost because of the emotion. But I was able, Tyler, to make that. And I hear you talking about that as one of the principles that you had to learn as well.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, we can have feelings for somebody, a friend, a family member,
Yeah.
but it's not my responsibility to
Yes.
solve somebody else's problem and to take their
Hmm.
pain. And there are times when somebody can be very, very close to you. I have
Yeah.
family members who I look at, and I feel like they are making decisions that are hurting them. And
Hmm.
there's a part of me that can be very drawn to want to save, help,
Yeah.
whatever. And
Yeah.
it's a disservice to me, and it's a disservice to that person,
Yep.
because and I look at it, because there are times when I've been in deep pain and I've wanted somebody to take my pain away,
Hmm.
and whatever has happened temporarily has not made any lasting impact
Yeah.
unless I made those changes
Yeah.
for myself, in
Myself.
myself.
Yep. I made those decisions to change on my own, the ability to create. And I venture to say, Tyler, that we have, wherever the person is today, I believe they have created that. They have created that based on the information that they have retained within themselves, whether
Mm,
that information came by a teacher, society,
mm,
parents, friends, where and however that information came, that they have taken it and now it belongs to them. And as creators, we create good and we create bad. And I could remember when I was at a space with this particular podcast where I knew it was going into a direction where I had to handle some fears about, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to do it. And so, because of my fearfulness, the internet wouldn't work. I mean, all hell, as they say, happened within a 30-day span. I couldn't do anything about my business. Why? Because I had created that. I had this fear based life and decision making happening, and the energy that I was emitting and sending forth to accomplish what I was doing was being answered. It was being returned back to me. And so
mm,
when I realized what was happening, because I knew I had to let it go, like you said, I had to come out of a head based space to come in now to a heart based space. And that was difficult for me to do because the head space, I had more control than the heart space. And then once I realized my process, I released it. And I always say to people that your blessing is beyond that door. And
mm.
things began to change in my life and things began to open up. And so I venture to say that we create our world, man, in any shape that we add. And I did that personally. And I give you an example of something that happened to me a few months ago that was happening to me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it can be challenging for people to hear that, because people say,
Hmm.
well, how did this person create this, and da, da, da. And I don't
Yeah.
like to get into hypotheticals, because it's like you talk about your experience and what you believe you created, and when I work
Yes.
with clients, I have tools and techniques, and we can look at specifically how somebody created something in their lives.
Hmm.
And what I would say as well, because it's a great story you provide. I mean, I don't know. I cannot prove
Hmm.
without beyond a shadow of a doubt that you created those internet problems, for
Hmm.
instance, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
I work with premises, and if a premise, like a working assumption of how something is,
Hmm.
has an impact, and you see the results, then like a scientist, right? We work with premises.
Yep.
There's no fixed laws. It's not like,
Yes.
well, this is how it is and it's written in stone. I work with premises, and a premise that I use is, we create it all, or I create it all. You create it
Hmm.
all.
Yeah.
And whether that's true or not, I don't know. But when I work with that premise, and when my clients work with that premise, we get results,
We get
because
results.
I
Yeah.
because I assume that I
Hmm.
create it all. So then, if I go to a place, and it's not, again, it's not this sort of like, well, wishful kind of like, well, then I just choose this, because it's not all about this wishful, well, I just, I imagine $1 million in my bank account. Well, you can sit and imagine that all day.
Hmm.
It's I don't know very many people who are actually going to manifest that, because every time you look at your phone, you're like, nope, still $2.32. Right. Okay. Well, I'm just going to imagine it even harder, right? There's a vision aspect
Yeah.
to being very clear on what it is you want. And actually, when you're imagining, things like money and these, more material things, you're actually not being true to your heart. Your heart
Yes.
isn't based on a dollar amount or whatever it
Yep.
is.
Hmm.
My heart is about expression. My heart is about facilitating other
Yeah.
people's creative purpose. Like that's what excites me. And when I'm on on point and in that vibration, the money just like I don't even know, like it doesn't come
Yeah.
from necessarily the clients. I mean, that does
Hmm.
happen, but often, I mean, other things just like fall
Yes.
into my lap, and this happens and this other thing comes, and I'm like, where did this come from? And I see that it's not just me. I mean, I have my clients, my colleagues. I mean, I have many dozens, even hundreds of friends who work in this line of work that I've learned in the creative orientation, and I see the results. And it also is about your compassionate detachment.
Yeah.
I'm very honest and truthful about what's really really happening.
Yeah.
Where I have a vision of where I want to be in terms of my business, my podcast, my relationship with my family, my intimate relationships, all sorts of
Hmm.
things, my artistic expression. That's one thing. And then to be really really honest with where
Yeah.
you are in relation to that, not just like physically or financially, but psychologically, emotionally,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
and not to make it mean something. It's not that story means anything about you, but it's like if you and I want to get on a podcast together, we need to know, okay, well, we're lined up to do a podcast at this time. Okay, that's our vision, and this is
Yeah.
what we imagine the podcast is going to be about. So where are we? Well, I'm
Hmm.
half an hour away, and the cab's not there, and you've got internet down, and
Hmm.
we got to be really honest with ourselves about that. And
Yeah.
and to say, well, I'm really worried. I'm not going to make it, right? Not that that
Hmm.
means anything about the vision, but to be
Yes.
really, really honest, because then you got stuff to work with, right?
Yes.
This is, you talk about creating, but creating is actually, see, take it to whatever first law of thermodynamics. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So all the energy that exists in the universe is already there. So
It's
we
already
literally are
there. Hmm.
stars.
Yep.
We literally are stardust and all that kind of woo woo stuff.
Hmm.
So we're transforming energy.
Yes.
This is an alchemical process. We take our lead, our anger, our discomfort, we acknowledge it, and then once you can acknowledge where you are, then you're in
Hmm.
a position to actually transform it, to
From the tangent.
transmute it, to
Yeah.
create it into the vision that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely 100% agree with you because the honesty is where we begin. How
Mm,
can you get a result if you're not honest with the outcome and where you're at and all of these things? And once as you were talking about, those are the things that once you start doing those things, I always tell people that personal growth and all this stuff and whatever is when you start to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest. And as you continue to become honest, you become better at how you handle yourself, how long you stay in a situation, how you correct yourself within that situation to get the results that you want. As you speak to your clients and personal coaches and stuff like that, we don't do anything but actually make the person aware of their energy, their strength, their stuff, and just give them some tools to help them get there. It's not a big thing, but a lot of people don't allow themselves because of emotional attachment. And you mentioned all the different anger, all of the different things that we create from the fact that we can't control the thought and we have allowed the thought to come in and then cause all this chemical reaction within our body, which then manifests into disease and all the other things that we allow to happen to us because our thoughts are not right. But you, as a coach, began to take those things you talked about, the story that I talked about, those principles that we talk about. We don't know exactly things that they could say, but the principles, once we initiate them, they work and they bring results. And that's all we could say. Once
Yeah.
initiated, it brings results. So we try to tell people, initiate them. Find yourself, to folks like Tyler. I mean, find yourself. He has a mentor. I have mentors. Find yourself, people that have that mindset, that understand that they're a creator, that
Mm.
you can share. And as you begin to share, you become, they say, Proverbs says, iron sharpen iron. As you're a smith,
Mm.
you know that terminology. And so we become sharper. If you ever seen a sword being made, and I know you have seen those things, you become more refined, more defined and
Mm.
refined.
Yeah, it's a beautiful image that iron sharpens iron. And yeah, I mean, I have my mentors. I've got many mentors. I have a
Yep.
coach.
Mm-hmm.
We're in this world now. It's like, I mean, I'm not a therapist. I don't solve people's problems, and but I help maximize people's potential.
Yes.
Look at the Rafael Nadal's, the Roger Federer's, the Tom Brady's, the
Mm-hmm.
whoever, Tiger Woods, like all these people, they are, you know, at like the top, tippity top of whatever their profession. The Serena Williams is,
Yes.
they, I mean, they would just like in their sleep, they would destroy us in any game, right? Like we could like 10 of us could go against them, and they'd just be like, "Ah, yawning, just da, da, da." And yet all of them that are successful um, have coaches. They
Yes.
have people that look after them. In fact, there's a
Yes.
great story about Tiger Woods, right? Because he had his big downfall and everything. But actually, the truth of the matter is that the reason he stopped winning is because he sacked his
He got
his
rid.
swing
Yeah,
coach.
he got rid of his coach. Yep.
He got rid of his
Mm-hmm.
coach, not
Yes.
because he had these affairs and da da da.
Yeah.
He got rid of his coach, and that was
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
That was his downfall.
Yeah.
And coaches have coaches. My coach has a coach.
Yes.
She has a coach, and
Yes.
it's like you cannot see your own blind spots. So if you want to
Yes.
maximize, the all of every CEO of every Fortune 500 company has a coach. They
Mm-hmm.
all do, not
Yeah.
because they're lacking and they need to be like they're inferior. No, because they know that they cannot see their own blind spots, and somebody
Yes.
else with an objective, detached compassion is going
Yes.
to be able to help them get even more better, whatever it
Yes.
is. I mean, it's not like you need to be Serena Williams or Larry Page or Richard Branson. If you want to be those things, cool. But you want to be a better mother. You want to be a better
Mm-hmm.
artist. You want to be a better
Yep.
professor. You want to be a
Yep.
better sister, or all these things. A good coach will help you in all those areas. I mean, I'm sort of quite a generalist. When I work with people, I mean, I look after. We come up with a set of choices and that cover all areas of life, because I'm very interested in holistic understanding. So
Mm-hmm.
if all you are is a great engineer, or I don't know, a lawyer or doctor at work, and you're not a good father at home, you're not a good
Yeah.
brother to your younger
Yep.
sister, what's the point?
Yep. What's the
You got
point?
to be all those things, and
Yes.
it's up for each person to decide the flavor that takes, right? I
Yes.
mean, there is this sort of weird sense that I talk about, which I deal with a lot with paradox as well, which are two seemingly contradictory things. So we were talking about energy, and on one level, everything, we're all connected. We are connected to everything through all time and space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stardust, where
Yeah.
where does Ken start and stop, and Taylor start, and the computer and all this, and it's all just energy. Even the quantum mechanics, right? It's all
Yeah.
vibration at whatever the
Mm-hmm.
10-dimensional element. So on one hand, we are all just vibration, energy, electrons floating around, protons or whatever it is, right? And yet Ken has his individual existence.
Yep.
Taylor has individual, every
Hmm.
listener, every person. We have our own individual flavor. We came into life at a particular time and we have
Yep.
our experience. And that means we have individual skills, talents,
Hmm.
and dreams. And, I don't understand how this world works, but my assumption is that I have a higher purpose and I'm here to fulfill that. And
Yes.
so then it becomes a game. That's when the adventure is like,
Yes.
cool. Let me
Yeah.
figure out what that is and let me do my best to actually fulfill my promise, my potential. And,
Yeah.
going back to that sense that we're all connected, I'm not here 100% for Taylor because if I am, I'm going to fail. But when I'm
Yes.
here for Ken and my
Hmm.
parents and my siblings and my partner and all, my
Yeah.
clients, then I'm more fulfilled. It's like it's by being of service outward, you ironically fulfill all the things that you wanted to
You
do
want
for
inside.
yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is the key, and I tell the secret to this whole thing of personal growth is to get to a place that you have learned how to empathize, how to feel, how to why are you going through all of these things in your journey is for you to then become a servant, for you to
Mm,
begin to enjoy that part of thing when you the value as far as money and all that stuff it doesn't matter when you see that smile on that first person's face that they have just realized that wait a minute, I can change this, and
mm,
that look on their face is the most rewarding thing that you as an individual can experience. You were talking earlier about what I call those scotomos, the blind side. And
mm,
those blind side people, friends are in our lives for that reason. Your wife, your buddies, your teacher, your coach, that scotoma, because and many of us respond certain ways when someone points out that because they are able to see that blind side that we're not able to see, we'll react in two ways. We either get mad, pissed off, scream and yell, or we'll look at that and go, you know what? There is some facility to this thing. There is some truth to this that I need to really look at. And how can I now take this, revisit and change and become better? I used to respond by pissing off and yelling and screaming for, until I realized what was going on, why this person was here in my life, and why they said what they said. And so, with those insights that you've gained, and as we learn and we become servants, the beauty of those things to be able to look at people as you were talking about. I mean, to move one person, you have your client. I'm sure when you move your client from one space to another, the joy that you have, the joy that you have collectively, and then when they leave that space, you are high for days on that incident that took place. And we try to let people know that that's what we ought to be doing.
mm. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely fulfilling in a very different way to saying like, "Ooh, I accomplished this," or "I
Yeah.
won this for myself." Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the other things I assume about myself is that I have the power, right?
Hmm.
And that when I work with somebody, I mean, I work with adults, people over the age of 18, or usually more than that, but I work
Yeah.
with people who are adults, so I assume that they have the power, that each person has agency for himself or herself in their respective lives. So,
Hmm.
and I have the power unless I give it away.
Hmm.
Now, there are
Yeah.
times when it's like, well, I have the power, but I need a medical procedure. So, here, doctor, you
Hmm.
look after my kidney or whatever it is because I don't know what the heck's going on, right? And when I
Hmm.
take a flight, I'm like, yeah, pilot, you have authority, and I'm handing that over to you. Now, there's risks, of course, associated with that, but I have the power. So when I say I'm in a coaching situation when I'm being coached, I mean, first of all, I'm paying my coach to give
Hmm.
me
Mhm.
information. And I don't just want to say, oh, I don't want her to just say, oh, Taylor, everything's going to be okay. You're going to be
Yeah.
okay. Um, I don't want to be coddled to, right? I want to be
Yeah.
told the truth, right? I said, like, I
Yes.
mean, the truth, one of the things, it's in the Bible, right? The truth will set you free. The
Yeah.
truth, real truth,
Hmm.
truth, like real,
Truth. Yeah.
truth.
Hmm.
The truth will set you free. But one of the things we say is at first it'll bitch slap you around, but 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 anyway, the truth will set you free. Um,
Yeah.
and so I want the truth. I want the honest truth. So if I'm being a jerk, if I'm missing things in my life, I want to
Yes.
know that.
Yeah.
And some of the, because we do intuition readings. We sometimes do that in pairs or groups, um, and it's remarkable. I work with people that I've never met. In fact,
Hmm.
I'm in the middle of facilitating this for thousands of people around the world right now, because my mentor, as I said, is running he's just running now a free program, and I think it's the fifth one he's done since the beginning of lockdowns last year. And I mean, he's had 15-20,000 people go through, maybe more, I don't know, through his programs online for
Yeah.
free over the last year and a half. And this is the fifth one I've been involved in facilitating and leading teams. And we can do intuition readings, and people are giving intuition readings to people that one person's in Kenya, the other person's in Florida, one person's
Hmm.
in Taiwan, and the other person's in New Zealand, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's remarkable. And it can happen because we assume that you're an adult. So if I give you
Yeah.
information and it's what I get is the truth. Well, you're a sovereign individual, and you can decide whether it applies to you, whether you want to do something about it, whether to take offense or just say, okay, well, that's
Hmm.
information. That's just like getting up and it's like the weather reporter says tomorrow it's going to be sunny, and you wake up and it's pouring down rain. It's like, okay, well, that's just new information. Now I can
Yeah.
decide whether I go out and just assume it's sunny and don't take a umbrella, or I say, okay, cool. Now I need a raincoat. So let me just go
Yeah.
out. Let me. This is new information. Let me deal with that in the way that I choose.
Yeah, it is the way it should be. And I was brought up as a Christian, and I got into a big trouble when I asked the pastors, where was the man when God was creating the earth? And they couldn't answer me because I knew they had God in this little box that didn't understand the question. I said,
Mm,
where was the man, the creature, the spirit man, the energy, however you want to put it? Where was he when God was creating the earth? And they couldn't. And so I explained it, and I got into big trouble. He was creating with God. He was commanding with him.
mm,
And then he was saying, let there be light, let there this, and he was calling out. And when that was finished, God says, well, I need to put this guy, we made this for you. Let me put you into this realm so that you can have dominion over this realm. So he takes this
mm,
mud and he formulates this body and he puts him inside this body and he says, hey, this is yours. Have ownership over this. This dimension is yours. And that's it. And
mm,
it tossed their mind all over the place because but if we are looking at that truthfully, God didn't put him on the side somewhere, did he had him
mm,
inside of him. So if he was inside
mhm,
of him, I'm sure he was there doing the same thing because he was not released until after the creation was there. And so we started this conversation with the fact that we are creators and how
mm,
we talk about that. And I am so excited that you came here and you taught us and you gave us all this information. And Tyler, I want to send the people to you. I want you to be
mhm,
able to take them and take them to the next level in their lives, so that you and I can hear stories about them when maybe one of them standing maybe at a podcast or a podium somewhere saying, yeah, I heard these two guys talking and look where I am today. So my goal is to send them to you, the people here. I welcome you and I thank you for coming by Threads of Enlightenment and sharing such
Mm,
wisdom and
mm,
all of the process by which you obtained what you have gotten today. And if you can do it, they can do it. You can give them the same information that you have guided you, and they can become creators just like you are. And so I thank you for
mm,
coming by Threads of Enlightenment, and I do appreciate
mm.
you stopping by. And I will send them all to you. I'm going to put all your stuff so that they can grab hold of you and your mentor, maybe get some of those classes from him, and then go to you and get
Yeah.
the master class so that they can get to where they need to get.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Ken. I really appreciate your service
Thank you, sir.
in facilitating. We're all kind of shepherds and servants and facilitating our role, because as you say, we have mentors and our mentors have
Yes.
mentors, and so I'm here.
Hmm.
I'm here to be a part of that, to be a part of that lineage. Yeah. So if you've got the information in whatever show notes, I'll leave it
Yeah.
there. I've got a podcast. I've got a company. I'm happy to have a
Excellent.
conversation with anybody. I do free intro calls, 20 to 30 minutes with people. Happy to arrange any of that. And I really appreciate you having me on today. It's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot and really appreciating
Thank you,
the
sir.
connection. And glad that despite our respective challenges before this,
Yes.
we were able
Yes.
to create
To create this
this here
space.
today.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming, and I appreciate all your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Cheers.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everyone who's listening to this podcast, we hope to continually help you to learn how to embrace moments of darkness, because it is in the darkness that we learn how to develop and use our abilities to truly see those parts of ourselves, often invisible to us, in the light. It becomes your responsibility to navigate through all of your trials, to find out who you truly are and begin your journey to loving yourself, which is possibly one of the most difficult things you will ever do in your life. To love yourself and to find the real you, but always remember to enjoy the journey. Thank you for coming by. Please subscribe, and if you can support us financially, we deeply appreciate it.